My father convinced my fiancée to marry my cousin. He told her, "He's smarter and more successful for you." I was devastated when I found out. But I left town to start fresh. When I returned, everything had changed. My name's Marcus. And I guess you could say my story begins on the day my world crumbled. Back then, I was just a guy in a small town Brookdale where secrets don't last long. I was 25, working at the auto shop, fixing up cars for folks who'd known me since I was a kid. It wasn't much, but it paid the bills. And I had Rachel. She was everything: long golden curls, a laugh like music. We had been together for 3 years, and I was saving up for a ring. Not anything extravagant, just something simple to promise her forever. That summer, I got the chance to make extra cash. A friend lined me up with a 4-week job repairing fences on a ranch 2 hours away. It was tough, sun beating down, sweat dripping, dirt under my nails. But every night, I'd call Rachel from an old payphone near the bunkhouse. Her voice always soft, always warm. "I miss you," she'd whisper. And I'd smile, counting the days until I could see her again. What I didn't know was that my own father was counting down too. But for an entirely different reason. When I drove back into Brookdale, my truck rattling along the cracked roads, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. I'd made enough to start a real future. Maybe even take Rachel somewhere nice for once. I stopped by her house first, a small cottage with chipped paint and the flowers she had planted blooming in the front yard. But when I knocked, her sister answered, lips pressed tight like she was biting back words. "She's not here, Marcus," she said, barely meeting my eyes. "You need to talk to your father." Dread coiled in my stomach. I drove home, dust swirling behind me, and walked straight into chaos. My dad, Richard, stood in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, barking orders at my cousin, Evan, like he was preparing for a celebration. Evan, all 6 feet 2 inches of him, leaned against the counter with a smirk. And then I saw it, the ring on his finger. A simple gold band, but not the one I had imagined giving to Rachel. "Where's Rachel?" I asked, my voice sharp. My father barely looked at me as he wiped his hands on a towel. "She's with Evan now, Marcus. They're engaged. It's done." The room spun. I turned to Evan, who only grinned wider like he had won some kind of prize. My fists clenched. "What the hell are you talking about?" I demanded. "Calm down," my father said, his voice firm. Rachel needed a man with real potential, not someone struggling to make ends meet. "Evan has a career, a stable life. You're just you." The words stung. I had spent years trying to make my father proud. Fixing the house when it needed repairs. Working extra hours so he didn't have to worry about money. Meanwhile, Evan coasted through life, never lifting a finger unless it benefited him. And now he had Rachel. I stormed out, my tires screeching as I sped to Rachel's house. This time, she was there, sitting on the porch swing, eyes red. "Marcus," she whispered. But I cut her off. "Is it true?" She hesitated, wringing her hands. Then, she nodded. "Your father," she murmured. "He said you'd never be enough, that Evan could give me the life I deserve." I didn't know what to say. "You didn't know what to say." I laughed, but it came out hollow. "You could have waited 4 damn weeks. You could have called me." Tears rolled down her cheeks. And part of me wanted to hold her, to tell her it'd be okay. But the other part, the part that saw Evan's smug grin, that heard Dad's voice, knew it was over. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I didn't answer. I just turned and walked away, her sobs fading behind me. That night, I sat in my room, staring at the walls I'd grown up in, photos of us as kids. Me and Evan at the lake, Dad smiling at a cookout. It all felt like a lie. I wasn't their family anymore. I was the extra, the one they tossed aside when something shinier came along. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I packed a duffel bag, clothes, a toothbrush, the $60 I had left from the ranch job. Dad was in the living room when I came down, reading the paper like nothing had happened. "Where you going?" he asked, not even glancing up. "Anywhere but here," I said. He didn't stop me. Evan wasn't around, probably off celebrating. I got in my truck and drove, watching Brookdale shrink in my rearview mirror. I didn't know where I was headed. But I knew one thing: I'd never let them break me again. And that was the moment it all changed. The day I lost everything and decided I'd build something they couldn't touch. Leaving Brookdale felt like peeling off a past I didn't belong to anymore. My truck rattled down the highway, radio spitting out static. And I didn't stop until the gas gauge hit empty. That landed me in Millhaven, a city big enough to swallow me whole. Concrete and neon signs replaced the quiet roads I'd left behind. I had $60, a duffel bag, and a fire in my chest that wouldn't quit. I wasn't sure what I was chasing, but I knew I couldn't go back. The first few nights, I slept in the truck, windows cracked, parked behind a 24-hour diner where the waitresses didn't care as long as I was gone by dawn. I'd wake up with a stiff neck, muscle sore, and splash cold water on my face in a gas station bathroom, hoping to feel human again. I needed a job. Fast. So I walked into every place with a "Help Wanted" sign. My boots scuffing cracked sidewalks littered with bottle caps and cigarette butts. Most folks took one look at my worn-out flannel and said, "We'll call you." They never did. Finally, I found a warehouse gig, loading crates onto trucks for $11 an hour. It was brutal. My arms burned after the first shift, sweat stinging my eyes as I hauled boxes of tools, car parts, whatever they shipped. The foreman, a guy named Vince with a voice like gravel, barked orders nonstop. "Move it, rookie." He'd shout, and I'd grit my teeth, picturing Evan's smug face every time I wanted to quit. I wasn't strong like him. Not yet. But I'd be damned if I let that stop me. Nights were the worst. I crashed in a cheap motel with walls so thin I could hear my neighbor hacking up a lung. I'd lie there, staring at water stains on the ceiling, thinking about Rachel. Her face sneaked into my mind, those soft eyes, that laugh. And I'd wonder if she was happy with Evan. Then I'd hear Dad's voice, "You're just you," and I'd roll over, punching the pillow until the thought shut up. I didn't have time to feel sorry for myself. One day, I spotted a flyer taped to a light pole outside the warehouse. Night classes. Learn a trade. Build a future. It was at the community college a few blocks over. I'd never been big on school. Barely scraped through high school. But something about it stuck. Maybe it was that word. Future. I signed up for a basic IT course, figuring it couldn't hurt. First night, I sat in a room full of tired people like me, all hunched over clunky old computers. The teacher, Mr. Bowen, was this wiry guy with glasses that kept sliding down his nose. "You don't need to be smart," he said. "You just need to show up." I could do that. That's where I met Emily. She sat in the back row, typing like the keyboard was an extension of her hands, short brown hair, freckles, and a way of smiling that didn't feel forced. We got paired up for some assignment about spreadsheets, and I fumbled through it, cursing under my breath. "Relax," she said, leaning over to fix my mess. "It's not brain surgery." Her fingers flew across the keys, and I just watched, feeling like a kid who wandered into the wrong classroom. After class, we grabbed coffee at a diner across the street, black for me, cream and sugar for her. She told me she'd grown up in Millhaven, worked as a cashier but wanted more. "I'm not staying behind a register forever," she said, stirring her cup. "What about you?" I didn't know how to answer. "Just trying to figure it out." I mumbled, and she nodded like she understood. We started talking after class most nights, first about the course, then about dumb stuff like movies or the best cheap eats in town. She had this way of making me forget the weight I carried around. Work got steadier. Vince stopped yelling so much at the warehouse. Even the guys started acknowledging me. One afternoon, Vince mentioned that his cousin's startup needed help, a tech outfit building apps or gadgets. "They want someone who'll work hard," he said. I showed up in my cleanest shirt, palms sweaty, and talked to a skinny guy in a hoodie named Tim. He asked what I could do, and I said, "Anything you teach me." I guess that was enough. He hired me as an assistant, running errands, hauling gear, whatever they needed. It was better work. And I got to watch these brainy types code and argue over things I barely understood. I had lost everything once. I wasn't going to let that happen again. But as I walked back to my place, city lights buzzing overhead, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Something bigger was coming. I could taste it. Millhaven stopped feeling like a maze after a while. It turned into home, piece by piece. By then, I'd been there for a few years. And life had a rhythm, work, Emily, and this quiet fire in me that kept pushing forward. That startup gig I'd stumbled into? It wasn't just an errand job anymore. The company was expanding fast, landing investors, making waves. One day, Tim pulled me aside. "I need someone to manage ops. You in?" I blinked, waiting for the punchline, but he was serious. "Operations? Keeping the chaos in line, shipments, schedules, budgets?" I'd never done it. But I'd watched Vince run the warehouse like a drill sergeant. I could learn. "Yeah," I said, heart thumping. "I'm in." That's how it started, climbing step by sweaty step. The company took off, hitting big with college kids. Then businesses, then overseas. I worked late, slept little. Success came in pieces, a growing paycheck, a bigger apartment, my name on deals. Then came the day I stood in front of a mirror in a suit that pinched at the shoulders. No crowd, no fuss. Just a couple of friends from work and Emily's sister snapping pictures. I liked it that way. Quiet. A few years later, she got pregnant. 9 months after that, we had Mia, tiny, loud, already showing Emily's freckles. 2 years later came Eli, all chubby cheeks and fists. I'd come home bone-tired, and they'd climb on me, giggling. And suddenly the day didn't feel so heavy. By then, I was CEO. Yeah, me, Marcus from Brookdale. The guy who used to fix brakes at the auto shop. Who left town with $60 in his pocket and no plan. But the past wasn't gone. It crept in late at night. When the house was still and Emily's breathing was soft beside me. I'd see Rachel's face, hear Dad's voice cutting me down. Picture Evan smirking like he owned the world. I kept a box in the closet, old photos. A letter from Dad I'd never opened. A snapshot of me and Rachel at the county fair, her head on my shoulder. Sometimes, I'd pull it out, stare at it, then shove it back. Emily caught me once. "What's that?" "Nothing," I said. Then, one evening, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. Brookdale area code. I almost didn't pick up, but something made me. "Marcus," a voice said. Gruff. Familiar. "Uncle Ray. Dad's brother. Your dad's gone. Heart attack. Funeral Saturday." My throat locked up. Dad hadn't been perfect, quiet. Let others make the big decisions. But he'd never cut me down like he did when I left. I mumbled something about being there and hung up, staring at the wall. Emily found me like that when she got home, the kids trailing behind her. "What's wrong?" she asked, setting Eli down. I told her. She didn't ask if I needed to go, just nodded. "They need you now." Friday, I packed a bag. Suit. Tie. Nothing flashy. Emily hugged me tight at the door, Mia clinging to my leg. "Be careful," she said, searching my face. "I will," I promised. Driving out of Millhaven, the kids waving from the porch, I felt the old ache stir. Brookdale was calling me back. And I wasn't sure what I'd find. But I knew one thing, I wasn't that broke kid anymore. Whatever waited there, I'd face it standing tall. The drive back felt like crossing a line I'd drawn in the dirt years ago. I pulled into a motel on the edge of town, a squat brick place with flickering neon. The clerk barely glanced up as I paid cash for a room. The bed creaked. The sheets smelled like bleach. But it would do. I dropped my bag, stared at myself in the cracked mirror. Lines around my eyes. Hair a little thinner. I wasn't that kid anymore. But I could still feel him rattling around inside me. Saturday morning, I put on the suit. Dark. Simple. Nothing flashy. The church was the same one I'd gone to as a kid. White paint grayer, roof sagging a little. Inside, the air was thick with old perfume and whispered gossip. Dad's casket at the front. Then them. Evan, broad-shouldered, suit straining at the seams, looking bored. Rachel, thinner, eyes dull, hands folded in her lap. Time hadn't been kind. But I didn't feel sorry. Not yet. A woman leaned over, Mrs. Carter, who had taught me Sunday school, and whispered. "They stuck you back here, huh?" Typical Richard. I shrugged. Kept my mouth shut. I could feel Dad's eyes on me, even now. Evan muttered something to Rachel. She didn't respond. Then Uncle Ray cleared his throat. "He wanted you to read this." Heads turned. Whispers rippled through the room. Dad's face twitched in the framed photo up front. Evan frowned. Rachel's eyes flicked up. I stood. Legs steady. Walked to the front. The aisle felt a mile long. Every step echoing on the wood floor. Ray handed me the paper. Clapped my shoulder. And I faced the crowd. Dad's handwriting stared back at me. Shaky. Slanted. Real. "To my boy, Marcus." I started, voice low but clear. "I wasn't the father you deserved. I let things happen I shouldn't have. But I watched you from afar." Footsteps echoed. Emily walked down the aisle, Mia and Eli trailing her. She wore a black dress, simple but sharp, hair pulled back. And the kids looked like little adults. Mia in a skirt, Eli in a tie. I nodded to myself. They reached me, Emily's hand brushing mine, and I turned back to the crowd. You could have heard a pin drop. Dad's face in the framed photo stared back at me. Evan's jaw went slack, eyes darting between me and the kids. Rachel blinked slow, like she was waking up. The rest of the church buzzed. When it ended, folks spilled outside. The air was damp with rain that had finally started. I stood under the awning, Emily beside me. The kids playing with a pebble they'd found. I thought that would be it. Just a look. A moment. Then I'd go. But then I saw them coming. Dad's people. Evan. Rachel. Mom. Cutting through the crowd. Faces I hadn't seen in 12 years. My pulse kicked up. I squared my shoulders. Whatever they had to say, I was ready. The rain came down steady now, tapping on the church awning like it was keeping time. Mom's eyes were sharp as ever. "Marcus," she said, voice clipped, like she was calling me in for supper. "You should have told us you were coming." No hello. No nothing. Just that old tone. Like I'd inconvenienced her. Evan loomed behind her, arms crossed, rain plastering his hair to his forehead. Rachel hung back, clutching an umbrella, looking smaller than I remembered. "Told you," I said evenly. "Didn't think you'd care." Her mouth twitched. Of course we care. Your family. She glanced at Emily and the kids, then back at me. Evan scoffed. Look at you now, huh? Big shot. Where you been? While you left me? I stared him down. Out in the cold while you took everything I had. He flinched. Just a flicker. But I saw it. Mom waved a hand, stepping in. That's not fair, Marcus. We did what was best for Rachel. For the family. You were young, chasing dreams that wouldn't pan out. Evan stepped up, shoulders squared. I laughed, sharp and bitter. He didn't step up. He stepped on me. You pushed him to it. Told Rachel I'd never be enough. Handed her over like I was trash. Mom dropped her gaze, water dripping off her chin. Evan's jaw went tight. So what? You're rich now? Big man with a fancy job? You come here to rub it in our faces? CEO, I said flatly. Built a company from nothing. Didn't come to rub it in. Just came for Dad. You're the ones who made it about me. Mom's eyes widened, just for a second, before she smoothed it over. Well, she said, forcing a smile. That's impressive. We always knew you had it in you. Didn't we, Evan? He grunted. Not selling it. Maybe you could help us out. I shook my head. Cut me loose. That's not Mom started, but I cut her off. You made your choices. I made mine. We're done. I turned, nodding to Emily. She called the kids. Mia and Eli scampered over, oblivious to the weight of it all. Let's go, I said. And we started for the truck. Mom's voice chased me. Marcus? Wait, we're sorry, okay? We didn't know. I kept walking. Rain soaked my suit. Emily's hand was warm in mine. Evan shouted something, cursing, probably, but it blurred into the storm. Rachel didn't say another word. And I didn't look back. Finally, as the road stretched behind us, Mia piped up from the back seat. Dad? Yeah, baby? Were those people mad at you? I exhaled, watching the rain streak the windshield. No, I said. And I meant it. They were just too late. I forced a smile. Just surprised, kiddo. It's been a while. Mia nodded, satisfied, and started chattering to Eli. Emily glanced at me. I softened. You okay? She asked. Yeah, I said. And for once, I meant it. The road stretched ahead, Brookdale fading behind us. And I knew I'd never go back. They'd seen me. Seen what I'd made. And that was enough. The rain followed us out of Brookdale, streaking the windshield. The kids were starving, and Eli had been begging for burgers since we left. The diner smelled like grease and coffee. The kind of place where the waitress calls you hon. And the booths are patched with tape. Mia slid in next to me, swinging her legs, while Eli climbed into Emily's lap, smearing ketchup on his shirt. 5 minutes in, and you're a mess, buddy, I said, ruffling his hair. He grinned, mouth full of fries. Watching them, laughing over dumb stuff like who could finish. First, I felt something settle in me. Halfway home, the kids dozed off, heads leaning against each other. Emily rested her head on my shoulder. Proud of you, she murmured, half asleep. I didn't answer. Just squeezed her hand. But it stuck with me. Back in Millhaven, pulling into our driveway felt like landing after a long fall. The house glowed, warm brick, simple, ours. I carried Eli inside, his little arms limp around my neck, while Emily scooped up Mia. We tucked them into their rooms, messy, with toys and crayon scribbles. And I stood there a minute, watching them breathe. You want to forgive them? Emily asked, sipping her coffee. I thought about it, watching the steam curl up. No, I said finally. Not because I hate them. I don't. Not anymore. Just, they don't get a piece of this. What we've got, it's ours. They lost their shot. She smiled, small but real, and set her mug down. Then that's that, she said, leaning into me. We sat like that for a while. The TV flickering with some late-night show we weren't watching. And I felt the last knot in my gut unwind. A letter came a week later. I almost tossed it. But something made me open it. Same old tune. Come home. We miss you. Help us. But there was something else tucked in the envelope. A smaller note I'd almost missed. Dad's handwriting, shaky, like at the funeral. Marcus, I left you the old watch. It's not much, but it's yours. I should have given you more. Forgive me. My breath caught. The watch. His watch. A beat-up silver thing he'd worn every day. I hadn't seen it at the funeral, figured Mom kept it. Guess he'd hidden it for me. That afternoon, we hit the park. Mia squealed as I pushed her high on the swing. Eli toddled after a butterfly, arms outstretched. Emily laughed from the bench, sun breaking through the clouds. I caught my reflection in a puddle, older, steadier. A man who'd made it. Brookdale was miles behind me. A shadow I didn't need to chase anymore. I'd built this. A family. A home. A life. And it was enough. Driving back, the kids sang off key in the back seat. I glanced in the rearview mirror. They were my future. Not that town. Not those people. Emily reached for my hand. I took it. And we drove on.